Dear Sagittarius, if today you feel like life is testing you more than ever before, if you feel unsteady as though one more gust of wind could knock you over, then please do not be afraid, because this is not random. There is a divine reason why you are hearing these words at this exact moment. And if you are a Sagittarius, then you are being summoned. God has given you 7 soul gifts, gifts that no one else possesses, gifts that no one else can understand. And the 7th gift will ensure you never look at the world the same way again. Stay until the end of this video, because when the final gift is revealed, you will remember why you were born. Right below the video, I am ready to stand firm in the light of God. This comment is not just a statement, it is a summoning, a calling forth of the energy of destiny guiding you to your soul's mission. And now hold your soul steady, because what's coming will shake everything you once believed was normal. The journey of Sagittarius begins. There are souls born to belong to a place. There are souls born to belong to a person. But there are also souls like you, Sagittarius, born to belong to the truth. You don't stay long in places where truth has left. You don't sit quietly in homes rotting with hypocrisy. You, a nomadic soul, carry within you the flame of one chosen by God to seek what is right, even if it means walking alone, even if it means giving up comfort. You don't need to be understood right away, you need to be held steady. Even when you feel lost, when someone says you're too idealistic, too honest, too blunt, deep in your heart you still know truth is the compass and you cannot betray it. You were not born to follow the mold, you were made to expand it. Jupiter, your ruling planet, is the symbol of growth, wisdom, faith, and divine law, not man-made law, but the law of the soul. When the world asks you to be silent, you choose to speak. When the world says live moderately, you choose expansion. When the world favors what is easy to control, you chase what has no map. You are the one willing to leave when the heart no longer feels meaning, and not everyone has that courage. I have seen many people trade their inner light for safety, but Sagittarius cannot live that way. You would rather be alone on a real mountaintop than be celebrated on a counterfeit hill, and that may wound you because not everyone understands the loneliness of the honest. But let me say this, with the deepest respect for your soul, you are not too different. You are holding a frequency most people aren't brave enough to touch. You don't live to please others, you live in loyalty to the light within. Have you ever wondered why pretending makes you uneasy? Why shallow relationships feel suffocating? Why you leave, even when you're still in love? Because Sagittarius knows, truth does not negotiate. And you cannot betray your soul. Right below the video, I choose the truth even if I must walk alone. Because sometimes just one sentence is enough to realign your soul. I have seen Sagittarius fail. I have seen Sagittarius lose direction. But I have never, not once, seen a Sagittarius give up on goodness. And this is the very first sacred gift, an unshakable foundation for life. When others wait for proof, you wait for signs. When others seek safety, you seek meaning. When others fear change, you fear deception. And that's why you never fall because of weakness. You only fall when you stray from the truth. Your strength does not lie in being validated, but in not needing to be. And Sagittarius is one of the rare souls who can live that way. You don't try to impress. You don't need to win to feel worthy. You know deeply that you are living in alignment with your soul, and that is a value beyond measurement. It cannot be calculated in dollars, in titles, or in the number of likes. It can only be revealed in silence. When you lie down at the end of the day and your heart whispers, I did not betray my soul today. Where others need systems, you need freedom. Where others fear the unknown, you trust the light in the distance. You are the one who dares to walk, even when no one has walked before. That is not just bravery, that is sacred obedience to the calling of your soul, and that is why I admire you, Sagittarius, not because you are always right, but because you always dare to ask, what is right? If you've ever felt like an outsider because you couldn't bear the falsehoods, if you've ever been misunderstood for speaking truths others avoid, if you've ever gone far away simply because what was near no longer felt real, right below the video, I am Sagittarius. I stand for truth, and because these words will connect you to others who vibrate on the same frequency all around the world. This is the first gift God gave you, a solid ground, built not on compromise, but on light. You don't need anyone to hold you up, because you were formed from a strength that cannot be bent, but to keep that strength burning, you will need the second gift, the arrow of truth. A gift no one asks for, but a weapon reserved for chosen souls. Some flames burn brightly in the open. Others burn quietly, in the dark, but never go out. The faith you carry, Sagittarius, is that kind of flame. It does not need to be loud. It does not need proof. It simply exists, even when nothing else seems to. In your birth chart, Sagittarius, Jupiter, the planet of expansion, faith, and divine law, is not just a god of light. It is the guardian of realms that human eyes cannot see. Realms of possibility. When others chase evidence, you seek promises. Not promises from people, but promises whispered by your heart in stillness. You don't need everything to be certain before you move, and let faith create the ground beneath your feet. You are the kind of person who looks at a desert and still sees flowers. And that, dear Sagittarius, is not naivety. It is your superpower. On days when everyone gives up, you begin. When they say, it's impossible, you whisper, but what if it is possible? And then you go, no fanfare, no promises, you just go with a heart on fire. You don't wait for the green light, you are the light. I know you've trusted the wrong people. You've hoped for things that never arrived. You've been disappointed, not because you were naive, but because you were loyal to the light. You've cried, not because you were weak, but because you gave your whole faith to something you loved. And when it all collapsed, you fell. But then you stood back up and you believed again, you opened your heart again. You placed your hand over your chest and said, I still believe God has a plan for me. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. Faith is walking forward even when doubt circles around you like wind. The world today is skilled at skepticism. They doubt joy, they doubt goodness in others, they even doubt miracles. And because of that, they dim. But you do not dim, you continue to shine, not to prove anything, but because there is a calling inside you that cannot be denied. It will all make sense. I remember a Sagittarius once said, I've lost everything, but I haven't lost God. That person had no home, no relationships left, no job, but every morning they still woke up, placed a hand over their chest and said, I know I have not been abandoned. If God is still letting me breathe, then surely he is still writing my story. You may not know that person's name, but if you are a Sagittarius, you know that feeling, the feeling of standing in ruins and still seeing a small light at the end of the tunnel. If you have ever stood up, just because there was still a flicker of light in your heart, if you've ever kept walking, even when no one supported you, if you've ever chosen to love, even after being abandoned. Right below the video, I still carry the light. You don't need a reason. You don't need anyone's approval. You just need to affirm to yourself, I am the fire that never goes out. You may lose money, you may lose reputation, you may lose the one you love, but no one can steal the light within you, because that light does not come from this world. It comes from somewhere far and deeply real. You don't need to be proven, you just need to be preserved. And this is why, among all zodiac signs, only Sagittarius carries the energy of resurrection through faith. You are not reborn because something magical happened. You are reborn because your soul never truly died. As long as you believe, you are alive. But dear Sagittarius, a flame will remain just a light if it has no target to aim toward. So, to keep your fire burning, God gives you the next gift, the second gift, the arrow of truth. A gift that is not soft, not easy to hold, and no one ever teaches you how to use it. But if you hold it in the right direction, it will pierce through every darkness you've ever feared. Some souls are born to comfort. Some souls are born to teach forgiveness. But you, Sagittarius, you were born to say what no one else dares to say. You don't argue, you don't shout, you don't try to convince. You simply speak the truth, and that is what startles others. You don't wrap the truth to make it easier to digest. You hand it over like a torch. Ruled by a mutable fire sign, your Jupiter does not fear change, does not fear conflict, only fears what is not right. You are not the type to agree easily. You are the type who can see the wrong, hidden in silence. You cannot pretend. You cannot smile when your soul is screaming inside, and you cannot nod just because someone needs you to. Truthfulness is not rudeness. It is a deep respect for the truth itself and for the soul of the one listening. You believe everyone deserves to live in the light, even if that light makes their eyes hurt. You've lost a relationship simply because you said what was right. You've been labeled too much, hard to get close to, arrogant, just because you refused to nod along with the crowd. You've stayed up at night asking yourself, if I just stayed quiet, would things be easier? But then your heart spoke again. No, because the truth, even when it hurts, deserves to be lit. Truth doesn't need trumpets. It just needs one soul brave enough not to turn away from it. And you, Sagittarius, you are that soul. I once met a Sagittarius woman, a teacher. One day she stood in a meeting filled with pressure and silence, where everyone else bowed to an unjust decision. She stood up, voice trembling but eyes shining. "I'm sorry, but this is wrong." The room went silent. Later, someone called her difficult. Someone said she didn't understand how things work. She was transferred, but a few years later, that very decision was exposed for what it was. And people came back to thank her. But the painful part is, no one stood by her when she needed it most. Truth doesn't always have allies, but it always has worth in silence. And souls like yours live to protect that worth. It makes you more real than even yourself. Because you know, if you don't speak, the lies will grow. If you don't stand, injustice will spread. If you don't raise your voice, light will lose its voice. Right below the video, I do not stay silent in the face of wrong. This isn't just a sentence, it is your soul's covenant with the world. No one may applaud you. No one may stand with you in that moment, but you know this, a quiet conscience is the greatest reward. And sometimes, those who once turned their backs on you, return and say in a hushed voice, "Thank you for not staying silent." God didn't give you truthfulness to hurt others. He gave it to you to keep the world from falling into darkness. When someone lies, you are the voice that says otherwise. When someone hides, you are the light. When the crowd claps, you are the one who asks, "But is it right?" You don't enjoy disturbing the peace. You just can't tolerate peace that's built on falsehood. But for a truth to strike deep, it needs vision, because even the sharpest arrow will miss its mark if it has no prophetic eyes to guide it. And so, the next gift God gives you is not in your mouth, not in your hands, but in your sight, the kind of sight that sees what has not yet happened. The vision of one who carries mythic instinct. And this is the third gift, the prophetic eye. There are things you know, but you can't explain why. Moments where you feel something is about to happen, even when everyone laughs and calls you too sensitive. But then it happens exactly as you felt it, not because you're good at guessing, not because you reasoned it out, but because you felt the frequency of the collective soul. You don't predict, you listen to what others ignore. In astrology, the 9th house is the sacred home of Sagittarius. And it is not just the house of knowledge. It is the temple of time-bending vision. You don't just see the present, you sense what lives behind the present. What is forming, but has no name. What is vibrating, but has not yet appeared. While others see the sky, you already feel the shift in the wind. You've warned a friend about something. They didn't listen. They said you were overthinking, so you stayed silent, and then it happened, exactly as you sensed. And when they turned back to look at you, their eyes were hesitant, and in your chest was both a chill and a strange peace. Not because you wanted to be right, but because you wished you were wrong. Because Sagittarius doesn't see in order to control. Sagittarius sees to warn, to protect, to prepare. Have you ever felt this? That you knew something too early, so no one listened? Have you ever dreamt of something, and days later it came true? Have you ever felt a sense of dread in your chest, and soon after a loved one received bad news? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and sensed something wasn't right, and later they betrayed you? You don't need evidence, you feel the truth, but because of that, you've known loneliness. Some people believe only when they see, but you believe from the soul, then you see. And that is why you can't explain your feelings to others, because they don't come from the mind, they come from the light within. In a time when most people think only about tomorrow, chase only what can be measured, believe only in what has a certificate, you, Sagittarius, you are still watching for the invisible sacred signs. You ask, does this have meaning for the soul? Is this aligned with my mission? What if I choose faith instead of fear? You don't live in weather forecasts, you live in divine forecasts, and that is what makes you different. If you've ever had a premonition no one believed, if you've ever woken in the night with a message you couldn't put into words, if you've ever written things in your journal before they happened, and then they did, right below the video, I choose to listen to the invisible truth. Not because anyone needs to hear it, but because your soul needs to know. You are not crazy, you are chosen. I remember a Sagittarius man. The day he was about to sign a contract with an investment partner, he suddenly felt a chill when he looked into their eyes. There was no clear reason, no evidence of wrongdoing, just something that didn't match his soul. He backed out. They called him naive, irrational, a fool to walk away from a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A year later, that company collapsed in scandal. Everything fell apart, and people came back and asked, "How did you know?" He just smiled quietly and said, "I didn't know, I just listened to a voice within." That is the prophetic gift, not given to boast, "I was right," but to quietly keep yourself and the ones you love from walking into something that should never be lived. You may be able to see, but if you don't stand firm in what you see, you'll be swallowed by it. You may be able to sense what's coming, but without the inner strength to hold the truth, you'll shatter under the weight of knowing too soon. And so, God gave you the fourth gift, the feet that do not fall. A gift that doesn't sparkle, not miraculous in appearance, but a rock-solid ground that lets you walk through storms and still keep your heart warm. Not everyone can endure the silence of walking alone. Not everyone has the faith to move forward without knowing where they are going. But you, Sagittarius, you've been walking that way your whole life. Yes, you have, haven't you? You carry the feet of a pilgrim, not to conquer, but to search for meaning. Every time you fall, you don't stay down for long, not because you don't hurt, but because within you is a calling that never stops whispering. A voice that says, "There's still so much waiting for you ahead, don't stop." In astrology, Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign, which means you know how to change. You can endure change, and you thrive through change. But unlike Aries, who charges forward with impulse, or Leo, who needs to be seen, you walk in your own light. The light of faith, the light of purpose, the light of a soul that cannot rest until it finds the truth. You don't need applause, you just need the voice in your heart to still be burning. You've been betrayed, you've lost everything, you've been misunderstood, but you didn't stay down for the world to pity you. You wiped your tears, you gathered what was left, and you kept walking. People look at you and think you're strong, but they don't see how many nights you've walked through the dark with only a flicker of light in your heart. You don't keep walking because you're fearless. You keep walking because you know fear is not your destination. No one holds you up but you and the light of faith that still burns, even when your hands are trembling. And that is what I admire most about you, Sagittarius. Not your success, not your charisma, but the quiet resilience you carry within. I once knew a Sagittarius woman. Her husband left her after 20 years of marriage. No assets, no family, 2 empty hands. But 3 months later, she enrolled in a course, started selling online, and every morning she wrote in her journal, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I believe God is walking every step with me." A year later, she was successful, not wildly wealthy, but enough to live, to laugh, and to love life again. And no one saw what kept her alive was her unshakable feet and a faith that never died. Strength isn't never falling. Strength is choosing to rise every time you fall and continuing to walk with a heart that's still soft. If you've ever kept going while your heart was still bleeding, if you've ever collapsed in a dark room but still got up to go to work, if you've ever been left behind but never abandoned yourself, right below the video, I keep walking even when no one sees me. Because writing it down is how your soul gets witnessed. You don't need applause. You just need to be seen. You're not trying to be strong. You just had no other choice. The world doesn't stop. Life doesn't wait, so you keep going, not because you must, but because you were born to keep going. Still, you too deserve softness. You too deserve to sit down. You too deserve someone to hold you and whisper. Today, you don't have to be strong. You don't always have to stand tall so others can lean on you. Sometimes, you also need to fall into the arms of grace, and that is exactly why God gave you the 5th gift. A heart that did not harden after pain, but became softer, stronger, and capable of loving deeper, because it has already known deep sorrow. There is a kind of strength that does not come from your hands. It does not come from intellect. It does not come from control. It comes from a heart that has been shattered, but still chooses to love. You once loved with all your soul, not the kind of love that fills a loneliness, but the kind of love that sees the soul of another and shows up in their life as a gift. And then you were left, you were betrayed, you were forgotten, not because you weren't good enough, but because you loved truly, in a world chasing what is false. The world may shut its heart, but you stay open, and that is what makes you divine. Jupiter, your ruling planet, is not only the symbol of faith, it is also the emblem of generosity, compassion, and a heart wide as the sky. You love not to possess. You love to understand, to accept, to nurture. The love you give doesn't shift with the seasons. It's the kind of love that stays alive. Even when the person is gone, you don't love with conditions, you love by being fully present. Maybe you've been betrayed, used, abandoned without a word, and you knew if you reacted, no one would blame you. You had every right to be angry, to pull away, to strike back, but you didn't. You chose forgiveness. Not because they deserved it, but because your heart deserved peace. If you have ever loved someone so deeply that you chose to forgive instead of revenge, right below the video, I choose love, not hate. You don't need them to come back. You don't need an apology. You just need to affirm this. You have moved on through love, not through bitterness. Only a great soul can still choose love after it has been torn apart. People will say, don't love again, love hurts too much. Be logical, don't be weak. There's no one out there worth it anymore. But you, Sagittarius, you still open your heart. You love someone new without making them pay for old wounds. You walk into a new connection without building walls around your soul. You keep your light alive, even when darkness has once visited. You don't love to fill an empty space. You love because you are love. I once witnessed a Sagittarius woman whose husband betrayed her after 17 years of marriage. She didn't scream, she didn't retaliate, she didn't tear anyone down, she stayed quiet, and one day she wrote, I don't hold on to the one who left, I hold on to the love within me, so that when someone truly cherishes it appears, I'll still have something beautiful to give. That unwavering kindness, that unclosed heart, is what makes you Sagittarius, a light for others. You don't try to inspire, you don't try to be the good person, you simply live in alignment with your truest self. But that has already healed so many around you, without you even knowing it. You don't need someone else's heart in order to love, you just need your own heart to keep beating and to beat for what is beautiful. And for that, you are given a very special gift. A gift that doesn't come from emotions, but from the healing presence you create for others. A gift that draws people to you, not because you have all the answers, but because you are the place where they can simply be themselves. And that is the sixth gift, inspiration. A light that doesn't need to speak, but is always felt. You don't try to teach anyone anything. You don't try to lecture. You don't need polished words to earn admiration. You just live truthfully, and by doing that, you become the light. And that very truth has become a lighthouse for souls who have lost their way. You don't need a podium. You don't need a stage. You don't need the spotlight. You walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because you speak loudly, but because you radiate the frequency of sincerity. You're not trying to teach, but the light within you makes people learn something anyway. In astrology, Sagittarius is not only the seeker of truth, but the one who passes it on, not through books, but through life. You are the soul of the journey, the one who walks, feels, falls, and then returns to tell others which paths truly lead somewhere meaningful. You don't preach the truth, you live it, and that is more inspiring than any sermon. I once heard a young person say, I was going to drop out. I thought I was worthless. Until a Sagittarius told me one sentence, you don't have to become someone else. You just need the courage to live as yourself. And from that sentence, they paused. They reconsidered, and then they turned around. Today, they are helping hundreds of other young souls find meaning in their own lives. You didn't know that, did you? So many times, you've said something simple, done something you thought was small, and yet it stayed in someone's heart for the rest of their life. You don't need to become somebody. You just need to be yourself, and the world becomes a little brighter. You don't have to be perfect to be someone who inspires. You just have to be honest. People don't come to you because you know everything. They come to you because they can feel your authentic soul. You've been hurt, but not hardened. You've fallen, but you still share. You don't preach faith. You walk in it every day, and someone somewhere sees you and doesn't give up on themselves. If you've ever helped someone just by being there, if someone has ever said, because of you, I didn't let go. If you've never thought of yourself as inspirational, but your heart knows you're living the truth, right below the video, I choose to live honestly and let the light do the rest. Because writing it down is how you continue to spread what you never tried to create, and that is a miracle. Someone kept going just because they saw you still standing. Someone opened their heart because you once shared what they were too afraid to say. Someone chose to forgive because they saw that you once did too. You didn't receive fame for any of it, but your soul knows. I didn't come here to impress. I came here to leave behind a trace of real love. A gift not meant to be given away, but meant to awaken you. A gift that is not just light, but source. A gift that makes it impossible to go back to the version of yourself you once were. And that is the seventh gift, the awakening mission. the gift of those souls who have journeyed far, suffered deeply, loved profoundly, and now it is time to become fully themselves. The final gift does not come in light. It comes in trial. It comes in the moment you feel like you've fallen for good. No one teaches you how to open this gift. No one tells you the day it will arrive. No one prepares you for the earthquake when your soul shatters open and something higher begins to speak through your heart. You stand before a crisis, a loss, a betrayal, an ending with no closure. The world keeps turning, but you stand still. As if breath has left you, you no longer seek to fight. You no longer need to explain. You no longer try to hold on. You simply dissolve and something else begins to step in. That is when you stop searching for meaning and become meaning itself. No more questions, only presence, no more reasons, only a deep knowing within. I am ready to live honestly. In astrology, when Chiron, the wounded healer, or Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, touches your destiny point in your Sagittarius chart, a chapter begins that no one else can save you from. You are no longer the you from yesterday. You can no longer tolerate what you once accepted. You can no longer lie for something out there. You begin to live from within, every step, a prayer, every breath, a sacred act. You've lost everything, people, direction, even your trust. You fell into a bottomless void where no sound could awaken you. And then, one morning, a light, a sentence, a strange breeze, a stranger's eyes, a verse from the Bible you read years ago, and suddenly you know, I was not abandoned, I was chosen. Awakening is not a blinding light. It is standing in the dark and realizing you've begun to see. You don't need validation. You don't need people to understand what you've survived because you've lived through what most people aren't deep enough to touch. And if you know this feeling, right below the video, I have awakened, because writing it is how the universe affirms that you're walking the right path, and you are not alone. You didn't come here to be famous, not to be perfect, not to please anyone. You came here to awaken something in this world. Something no one else could ever awaken but you, because everything you've been through was not meaningless. You are not broken, you were called to become real, and that truth will save so many wandering souls. Now, you are the one who holds the light. You no longer ask, who am I? You now say, I am the light, I am the journey, I am the one who was chosen. You no longer chase the dream, you become the dream that was sent from heaven. You no longer ask, where is God? You look within and know He is here, in me, with me, and I am ready. If you're still reading these words, it means your soul has walked through enough trials to touch the most sacred gift of all, your awakened self. But don't close the chapter just yet, because what comes after awakening is a new revelation. You are the portal, you are the healing, you are the one the world has been waiting for. Dear Sagittarius, these 7 gifts are not meant to be kept, but to be shared. Not to make you a hero, but to make you the light. Let this video be the place where you mark the moment you no longer hide your light, the moment you no longer shrink out of fear of being different, the moment you rise and say to yourself, I was chosen and I am ready. Thank you for walking with me to the very end of this journey. Thank you for keeping your heart open. Thank you for letting your soul listen. Not everyone has the courage to look into their own gift, but you did. And because of that, the world just got a little brighter. Right below the video, I am ready to live fully the gift God gave me. Share this video if something inside you awakened, because maybe the next person who needs to hear this is already close to you. And if you think this is the end, I must tell you it's not. There is a sacred gift still sleeping within you, a gift the whole world has been waiting for you to awaken. And if you've listened this far, then you already know a new chapter has begun. I am the light, I have returned. And you, Sagittarius, so have you.